Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be found acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Fixing a divided heart. Now therefore revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now, if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Joshua became the leader of the Israelites after the death of Moses. He was Moses' assistant, and it fell to him to continue where Moses left off on the journey to the promised land. When Joshua became the new leader of the Israelite company, he received the following assurance from the Lord. No one shall be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall put this people in possession of the land that I swore to your ancestors to give them. This assurance must have encouraged Joshua as he led the people to the promised land. You see, my friends, leadership is not easy. Leadership is very challenging. It requires strength and courage to be a leader, to surmount the obstacles and stand in the face of opposition. This comes not so much by being sure of yourself, but being sure of God. A leader stands not because he is confident in himself or herself, but because his confidence, his trust, is rooted in God. The setting of today's reading is what some call Joshua's farewell address to all the tribes of Israel. The elders, the heads, the judges, and the officers, all the people of Israel, were summoned to a place called Shechem. And there, Joshua invited them to make a covenant, or to renew their covenant with God. Now this place, Shechem, a city in Canaan, held much spiritual significance for the Israelites. And one that I would like to highlight is related to Abram or Abraham when he traveled from Ur across the Fertile Crescent and down into Canaan. The first city he entered was that city called Shechem. And here, Abraham built an altar to the Lord, and God confirmed his promise to give the land to Abraham. So Shechem was a very important place in the history of the Israelites. And here on this occasion, their leader Joshua called them to this city, to this place called Shechem, and he addressed them. Now, again, it was here in Shechem that Joshua issued a clear call to the people of Israel to turn from idolatry. He says, "Put away the gods your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt." Idolatry, friends, is the worship of other gods and not the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. The 10 Commandments that were given to the Israelites by Moses addresses this practice very clearly. It says, it's stated, "Thou shalt have no other gods but me." We can read that in Exodus 20, verse 2, and Deuteronomy 5, verse 6. It is a very important commandment. "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And by this commandment, the exclusive nature of the relationship between God and the nation of Israel is established. God requires and demands an exclusive relationship with his people. "Thou shalt have no other God before me." So Joshua once again calls on the people to turn away from the practice of having other gods. He did not want the people to be guilty of the sin of worshiping another God. And usually when we think of other gods, we think of some idol, something that is made. But I want you to understand, sisters and brothers, that idolatry can be anything that takes the place of God in a person's life. It is when the human heart is divided. So Joshua says, "Put away the gods your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt." And he goes a step further. He says that they should also avoid being drawn into the worship or the service of the gods of the Amorites, in whose land they were living. And this is something that can happen to people, that they can be drawn away from the worship and the service of the true and living God to serve other gods. Not necessarily those things that we fashion with our hands, but there's the God of money. And there are so many other gods that clamor for our attention. I came across a quote that explains why idolatry is wrong. And I'd like to share that with you today. I quote, "Idolatry dethrones God and enthrones creation. Idolatry is the attempt to limit, reduce, and control God by refusing his authority, constraining or manipulating his power to act, having him available to serve our interests. At the same time, paradoxically, idolatry exalts things within the created order, whether natural objects in the heavens or on the earth, or created spirits, or the products of our own hands or imagination. Creation is then credited with a potency that belongs only to God. And I should point out that when I speak of God here, I mean God with a capital G. And when we speak about putting away gods, we are speaking about gods with a common G. So idolatry, my friends, is a great reversal. God who should be worshipped, that is God with a capital G, becomes an object to be used. Creation is for our use and blessing. And my sisters and brothers, this quote says, creation can sometimes be turned into our God. End of quote. And so idolatry is wrong because it dethrones God, the God with a capital G, from our hearts. And it enthrones, it puts other gods with common G's in the place where God should be. So Joshua calls on the people to put away the gods that they serve beyond the river and in Egypt. And he warned them not to be drawn into the worship of the gods with a common G that were the gods of the Amorites. And as we reflect on this text further and listen to Joshua's address to the people, he made a clear appeal to their loyalty. He called on them to be loyal to God with a capital G. Choose this day, he says, whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. Choose this day whom you will serve. Their leader appealed to the people to make a choice. They were to decide their loyalties. Make a choice about whom you will serve. Make up your mind. Fix your heart on serving the Lord or the gods your ancestors served across the rivers, or the river, or the gods of the Amorites. Make a choice. Make up your mind. Decide your loyalty. John Kenneth Galbraith was a noted economist in the early 1900s and was called upon by many dignitaries to help sort the economic markets. He wrote the following story in his autobiography about his housekeeper. It had been a wearing day, and I asked Emily, do we have any Emilys here today? I asked Emily to hold all telephone calls while I had a nap. Shortly thereafter, the phone rang. Lyndon Johnson was calling from the White House. Get me Ken Galbraith. This is Lyndon Johnson. He is sleeping, Mr. President. He said not to disturb him. Well, wake him up. I want to talk with him. No, Mr. President. I work for him, not you. When I called the president back, he could scarcely control his pleasure. Tell that woman I want her in the White House. Emily, the housekeeper, understood an important truth. She was a servant to one man and obeyed his wishes explicitly. Her loyalties were to Mr. Galbraith alone. I tell this story, my friends, because I think it illustrates what loyalty is all about. Emily was a true servant of Mr. Galbraith. She was loyal. She was committed. She obeyed his word. And that is the kind of loyalty to which Joshua was calling the people of Israel. To be loyal, to serve the Lord without wavering. And a time comes, my friends, when individuals must stop wavering in their loyalty. When one must stop halting between opinions and make a choice. How long will we go on halting between opinions? I'm struck by what Joshua says to the people as well in this address. He says to them, choose this day, not tomorrow, not next year, not one of these days. Choose this day whom you will serve. Brothers and sisters, there's no better time than the present time to choose to serve the Lord. People put off some important choices, thinking that somehow tomorrow or a future time will accommodate their delay. But this day is always the best day to make the decision to serve the Lord. And if anyone here needs to make that decision, I advise you to make that decision today, this day. I want to end, my sisters and brothers, by getting us to look at something else that Joshua says in this text. Joshua states a clear position for himself and his family. In this address, Joshua calls the people to turn away from idolatry. He calls on the people to decide their loyalty. And he makes a clear statement about his position and that of his family. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua wanted the people to know his position. He wasn't calling on them to do something that he, as their leader, was not prepared to do himself. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Here is a quote, sisters and brothers. I would not give much for your religion unless it can be seen. Lamps do not talk, but they do shine. End of quote. Joshua was not all about talk. Some people are very good at talking. Talk about religion. Talk about serving in the church. Talk about serving the Lord. But Joshua was not all about talk. He was a shining example of one whose heart was fixed on serving God faithfully and sincerely. What impresses me here is that Joshua didn't speak only for himself. He also spoke for his family. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Oh, I remember those days when a man would speak for his family. As for me and my household, this is what will obtain. This is what we will value. This is what we will do. There's a lot here, my sisters and brothers. How do we show that we are serving the Lord? And I would suggest that we can show that we are serving the Lord when we are involved in prayer, the study of scriptures, doing good works that help our community. When we attend worship and demonstrate in our actions a deep faith and confidence in God with a capital G. Yes, church attendance and involvement is also one way that we show that we are serving the Lord. And I say that because of a study I came across. A study once disclosed that if both mom and dad attend church regularly, 72% of their children remain faithful. If only dad, 55% remain faithful. If only mom, 15% If neither attended regularly, only 6% remained faithful. So these statistics speak for themselves, my sisters and brothers. The example of parents and adults is more important than all the efforts of the church and Sunday school put together. What parents do, the example that we set as parents, will have far greater results, would yield far greater results than what we do as church and Sunday school. My sisters and brothers, when we lament the low attendance of children and youth at church, we parents and guardians should think about the choices and decisions we make for our children. You know, we parents make a lot of decisions for our children. We choose their names. We choose the schools they attend. And so many other choices we make for them. And so I am saying that it is important that we make certain decisions about our children's faith. Because when we make those decisions about our children's faith, it can determine their fate, their destiny. So we parents can make a difference and can help our children to make God the center and focus of their life. And I say, what a society and a world we would have. And think of how the Christian influence, the God influence, would spread if, like Joshua, we can say, as for me and my house, my family, we will serve the Lord. Then house to house, family to family, this world can be a better place. This world can be a world that brings glory to God. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.